Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Recha Kodesh. Double honors to the elders and the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and blessings to the elect. And today we're going to go into the book of Habakkuk, the second chapter. Pretty much as we go into Habakkuk, the second chapter, slightly different than the first, to a degree. The second chapter is mainly dealing with Esau, Edom. Okay. And so when you read it, it refers to, it describes the characteristics of this individual, as you'll see as we keep on going, which applies to Esau, Edom today. Okay. And this is, like I mentioned when we went through the first chapter, this is a part of why understanding the Bible in itself is difficult for people, because being able to identify certain things, be it different chapters or different verses in the Bible, that maybe the previous verse might be talking about one time period, the next might be talking about another, lest you have the Spirit of the Lord with you, you're not going to be able to discern that, and ultimately you ultimately need to be taught, to be guided in that direction. Nevertheless, let's go into it. So God answers the prophet. This is Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 1. I will stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and will watch to see what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. Now, when you read in the first chapter, Habakkuk was pretty much speaking to the Lord, letting his troubles be known to the Lord as to why it is that the Lord is allowing the violence and the ungodly behavior that is going on in Israel to continue, and then on top of that to bring the Babylonians against Israel, and all that destruction and so on and so forth. So here, as he says, I'll stand upon my watch and set me upon the tower, and watch to see what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. Now, applying this to us now, the way we stand upon our watch, right? The scriptures tell you in the book of, let's go there real quick, the book of Isaiah, chapter 62, verse, I think it's either 2 or 6, but we'll find out. Yeah, verse 6. And it reads, I have set watchmen upon thy walls, O Jerusalem, which shall never hold their peace day nor night. Ye that make mention of the Lord Yahweh, keep not silence, and give him no rest, till he establish and till he make Jerusalem a praise in the earth. Now, of course, back in the ancient times, you had watchmen, literally, that were on the walls, because whenever you had a defense city or a fortress, or these kinds of cities that had these walls, you would have watchmen. Okay. But in this context, the Lord is referring spiritually, right? Spiritual watchmen, which are the prophets, okay, who have been given the eyes to see. And so what are we actually watching for? Not literally being upon the walls of Jerusalem, okay, but being where Israel is located. We are watching for these prophecies, okay, and we are speaking concerning them, like through these videos and through the street speakings and so on and so forth, as it says, never holding their peace day nor night. Now, holding your peace is Old English for shut up or don't say anything, right? Keep your thoughts to yourself. So here it's saying the Lord said he set up watchmen who will never, hold their peace day nor night, meaning we're constantly going to be doing lessons. We're constantly going to be speaking on these things that are happening in the world as we are watching out for these prophecies. Right, ye that make mention of the Lord, keep not silence. And we are the ones who are making mention of the Lord. And it doesn't mean that we're just, saying the Lord's name 10 times in a video and then call it a day. But we're speaking on the things that the Lord is doing and the things that he's getting ready to do. It says, and give him no rest till he establish and till he make Jerusalem a praise in the earth. Okay, so pretty much going back to Habakkuk, the second chapter, we now in this time are also standing upon our watch, and as it says, and to see what he will say unto me, and what I shall answer when I am reproved. Now in this time, the way the Lord is speaking unto us is by way of these prophecies. So we read what's written in the scriptures, and then we watch as the angel told Ezra in the book of 2nd Esdras, the 9th chapter, to measure the times diligently. Verse 2, and the Lord Yahweh answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, that he may run that readeth it. Okay, so just like the different prophets of old, when they received these visions, either of things that were to come closer in their time, or things that were to happen thousands of years in the future, they had to write it down. So as the Lord is telling Habakkuk, note this down, that he may run that readeth it. And you know, when you read, like when you read in the different translations, for example, you know, they all sort of hover around the idea of somebody reading this message, and being that this vision is sort of urgent, they make haste to go and herald the news, right? To go and spread that news, you know, that kind of thing. Okay, which you know, we kind of do the same thing now, right? When you first come into the truth, you hear about the scriptures, you understand it, and you get into the spirit of like urgency. Number one, to get right yourself, but to also, you know, you want to let your family know, you want to let your friends know, you want to, you know, pretty much let everybody know that, hey, did you know that this is going to happen? Hey, you got to do this, you got to do that. You know, part of it is also having that overzealous spirit, but eventually that calms down, you know, as you continue to learn more and more. Verse 3, for the vision is yet for an appointed time. So like the Lord told Habakkuk here, write this vision down because it's set for an appointed time, meaning that I've showed you something that I have set to happen at a specific time. But at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. So there's a time the Lord was telling Habakkuk here that he is appointed for this vision to take place. And at the end, when the time is up, when it's ready for this vision to be fulfilled, it's going to speak and not lie. When it speaks, it doesn't mean that it's going to be speaking literally, but speaking meaning that the vision is going to be fulfilled, it's going to come to pass. And it's not going to lie, as in it's going to happen exactly as it was written or it was prophesied. Though it tarry, wait for it. Now, when you tarry, you drag your feet. You know, you're slowing down, kind of thing. And so the Lord is telling them that though the vision that you're seeing, right, which also this can be applicable to the other visions that were received by the various prophets, because all those visions were also set for appointed times. And at those given moments, those visions or prophecies would be fulfilled. However, some of them would tarry, meaning you would see events that are related to that, and you would think, oh, maybe now is the time that it's going to be fulfilled, but then it calms down. It doesn't happen. Right. One example is, you may see, we know that the prophets received visions of nuclear destruction. They received visions of World War III, right? They received visions of Russia and the US and Israel and Iran and all of these nations basically going to war. The sides being drawn, Turkey being on the side of Russia, and so on and so forth. So you may see some geopolitical tensions that rise up and flare up into something that looks like it's escalating, and then it calms down for a little while, and then something else that's even more intense happens, and then it escalates even more, and then it sort of calms down again. So that's an example of the vision tarrying, right? And the Lord is saying here, although it's tarrying, there are times when it seems like, oh, we're right there, it's about to happen, then it calms down. You still have to wait for it. Don't lose patience and say, oh, you know what, forget it, I don't even think it's going to happen anymore. That's the end of that. And the reason you have to wait for it is because if it is written, it's going to happen, right? So because it will surely come, it will not tarry. Meaning when we get to the point where it's this vision is ready to be fulfilled, it's going to happen, and there's going to be nothing that's going to slow it down or stop it from happening. And now when we get into verse 4 on down, now it starts to go into really talking about Esau. Okay, Esau, Edom, and what you'll find out is. You know, the Lord speaks about Esau, Edom by way of his prophets many times prophetically in the scriptures. And the reason is because this nation was going to play a major role in prophecy, in end time prophecy. That they're the nation the Lord is using to bring forth the mark of the beast. They're the one of the main nations that the Lord is going to be using to bring forth this nuclear destruction. They're one of the major nations the Lord used to bring us into the worst captivity we have been in. So they play a very, heavy role also in prophecy, as being the the whipping stick or the rod or the sword of the Lord, but really to play the role of the wicked. Okay, so verse 4, behold, his soul, which is lifted up, is not upright in him, but the just shall live by his faith. So ultimately, when you go into this, whose soul is not upright in him? Now, when you look up the word upright, we have here yashar in the Hebrew, and it means, or a couple of definitions here are, to be just, to be lawful, right? Let's see what else is here. To esteem right. Yeah, so I think these are most fitting, right? To be just, to be lawful. And we know that this is anything but descriptive of Esau Edom, because Esau Edom is not just, they're not lawful. As a matter of fact, in the book of Malachi, they are referred to as the border of wickedness. So they are the wicked. And that's why that's why the Lord is saying here that their soul that's within them is not upright. Meaning them being wicked is by nature. It's not by nurture. And we can prove that. I believe it's in the book of Psalms, chapter, what is this? Is it 58? Let's see. Yeah, here we go. Psalms 58, verse 3. And it reads, the wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. Now, if we look into a couple of these words here, let's start with the word estranged, and then let's also look at the word astray. And the word estranged goes back to the Hebrew word zawar, which goes into like a stranger. Okay, so as it says here, to be strange, to be a stranger. And what are they alienated, or what are they estranged or strangers to? The truth, to righteousness. And it says they go astray as soon as they be born. And when you go into the word astray, we have here fa'ai, looks like that's the word there. It says here to wander, to go astray, to wander about, to sin, or of sin ethically, meaning that the wicked are born ethically, wrong, for lack of a better word, meaning that they're born with that, okay, to cause, to err, mislead mentally and morally. That's why their nation is known as the wicked. Okay, no, an apple is known for certain characteristics. So an apple tree would always bear fruit that are always going to, be of the same characteristics. Same thing with the nation of Esau, or the nation of Edom. That's how they are created. So that's why it says here that they go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. So once they get old enough to, to start exhibiting these traits in their fullness, you'll see that by nature, this is how they are. And given the right circumstances, it comes out. Okay? It comes out. And that's why, going back to Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter, here they are characterized as not having an upright soul. But the just shall live by his faith. Now, the just on a high level is really talking about the nation of Israel. If you're looking at the different nations, the just or the elect nation would be the nation of Israel, but more specifically, the elect of the nation of Israel, meaning there are a specific number of Israelites within the nation of Israel that have been ordained to live by faith. Faith in who? Faith in the Heavenly Father, Bahasham Yahweh, his son. Verse 5, yea, also, because he transgresseth by wine. He is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Now, as you know, we can unpack this a bit, right? So first thing is he transgresseth by wine. And we know when you transgress, you trespass, you go off, you do wrong. But the wine here is not talking about actual literal wine that you drink. The wine here is referring more to philosophies or doctrines. Okay, and let's get actually get a precept on that. Yeah, this is the book of Isaiah, chapter 29, verse 9. Stay yourselves and wonder, cry ye out and cry. They are drunken, but not with wine. They stagger, but not with strong drink. So how is that possible? How can somebody be drunk, but yet not having drunk anything that can intoxicate them like that, or make them inebriated? Because this is not referring to them being literally drunk, but spiritually drunk, meaning just like physical wine and strong drink alters your thought process. Well, being indoctrinated or being led to believe false doctrines or a false way of living also alters your mental state. And you like a drunkard moves a certain way because they're under the influence of that drink. Well, those that have been made drunk with false philosophies also move and live a certain way because they're under the influence of those philosophies. So he transgresseth by wine, by his doctrine, his philosophies, the wicked way of life that not only do they exhibit and live by, but they also push it. They push it amongst the different nations and the people around the world. Now, I mentioned that this is talking about Esau, Edom, right? And the primary habitation now, prophetically, for them is Babylon. Okay, that is Babylon, which is America today, is the nation that they are most closely associated with in prophecy. Okay, so you can think of it like Babylon personified would be Esau. But as it says here, he transgressed by wine. He is a proud man, which you don't need to say much about that, because they are pretty much the most proud, pompous people on the planet, and you can tell everybody would pretty much agree with that. Neither keepeth at home, and that's why when you look on the world today, these people have turned themselves into like the world police, where whatever is going on, here it is. You already have issues going on in your country, but 2 seconds later they find you in the Middle East. They find you over there in other countries that are sovereign, by the way, that are telling you we don't need you here and we don't want you here, and yet you're over there. You set up military bases in different locations. Okay, so they're pretty much everywhere, and majority of that reasoning or that drive is because of resources. Because when they make their way into these other countries right there, they're going there to exploit them. Let them find out that there's some country over there that just like struck gold or found some. You'd see how fast they'd end up in there. All of a sudden, the leader of that country would be made out to seem like he's some terrible guy. He's mistreating the people, and now they need to go in there and liberate these people. So they're everywhere. Who enlargeth his desire as hell, and is as death. Now, when it says hell, it's not talking about a place where you burn forever. It's referring to the grave, and you'll see why it likens their desire to the grave or death, right? And is as death, and cannot be satisfied, because death and the grave, which go hand in hand, are never full, right? Which that's here in Proverbs 27 and verse 20. Hell and destruction are never full. So the eyes of man are never satisfied. See, so the eyes or desire, the eyes of man here refers to their desire, or on the extreme end of that, their greed. And just like hell and destruction are never full, that's likened on to, like it says here, the eyes of man are never satisfied. Hey, one example is, there are cases where you'll hear, for example, today's society, they'll coin it this way, right? That this man cheated on his spouse, or he cheated on this girl that he was with. And you may look at whatever girl he was with, and you may say, damn, she was fine as hell. Why the hell would he do that? He wasn't satisfied with that? That's never the case. All right. But anyway, where we at? Right. He enlargeth his desire as hell and is as death. Right. So have you ever come across a situation where somebody gets shot or they encounter a fatal disease, but they can't die because the grave is full? Death is accepting no more patients. So they put them on the death puts them on the wait list. And when there's enough space, then they die. That never happens, right? There's no shortage of death. It says, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. And that's why you see, number one, not only are they mingled everywhere, but they have, all different people here. Okay. Verse and also a reason for that, for them trying to gather all nations and all people, is because they're trying to push that one world agenda. Right? Remember in Revelation 13, it says that he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive that mark. So by trying to disannul the separation between nations and trying to, gather them all together as one, he can centralize them or centralize things, and he can be that central power. Right? But keep in mind that these people have a God complex. And you can see this in their actions. You can see this in their I don't want to call it I'm not going to call it that, but you can just see it in their motto. Okay, in the direction of their agendas. Verse 6, shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, now who are all these? These are the nations. And say, woe, because remember, it just says he gathered all nations, right? And say, woe, to him that increaseth that which is not his. Now, in this case, a parable or a taunting proverb is like a negative saying about somebody. Like today, for example, they may refer to a whorish woman in a certain location as, I don't know. Oh man, I'm trying to think of some of this modern day slang, like deep throat queen or something like that. As crazy as that sounds. Now, that's just like that's a almost like it's like a taunting parable or byword or some stigma that they put on somebody to label them a certain way because of what they're known for, right? Like a deep throat queen. You know what that is. If you don't, go look it up. Okay. But anyway, it says here, woe to him that increaseth that which is not his. How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. Now, by increasing that which is not his, that's theft. Okay. They continually use narrative, propaganda, and military power to go and basically steal and rob, whether it's land or merchandise or resources or even people. Okay, that is not really rightfully theirs, but they take it anyway, and they amass in wealth by doing that. If you actually look deep into, for example, the heads of Esau today, meaning their elites, their top families, and you look at how they actually became rich, it wasn't through I'll tell you right now, it was not through lawful means. It wasn't through fair and equitous business. Okay, definitely not. Anyway, as it says here, and to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. Now, when you actually go into that, which this Habakkuk 2 and 6 is a primary example as to why it's important to look into words. Because when you read texts that are not, they weren't originated in modern times, meaning like you're reading a book that goes back that stems thousands of years, or stems different civilizations or generations ago, you have to always look into the meaning of words, because what we're reading here right now, for example, Habakkuk 2 and 6, we're reading it in English, but in the original text, it wasn't written in English. What that means is through time and through translation, if you don't go back and make sure that, okay, the English word I'm reading right now, it lines up with the original meaning of the word. If you don't do that, you might very well easily overlook certain things. And one example here is the word clay. Okay. We know the word clay. If somebody mentions clay, there's one main thing that comes to mind. As a matter of fact, look, if I go into Google and I just type in clay and we go to images, this is exactly what we all think of when you hear clay. This earth, this soil, this material right here that is moldable, and they use it to make pots and ceramics and different, things, right? Statues and all of these things. This is what you think of when you hear the word clay. So when you read it and you see the word clay, oh, thick clay, you're thinking of clay. But the word there says clay, it doesn't mean clay. The original context, the Hebrew word there does not mean this here. So let's find out what it actually means, right? So it says here in the last verse that they ladeth themselves. Now let's also look into that word ladeth and clay. And the word here is, what's that? Kabod, if I'm not mistaken. And it says, and I think this is actually it's different from the kabod that means honor. So here the word ladeth says to be heavy, to be grievous, to be burdensome, right? So they've overburdened themselves. They've laid or taken up upon themselves this thick clay. And the word clay in the Hebrew is bat yat. That's a ta, right? So bat yat, which is weight of pledges or heavy debts. Okay. So when it says here that they ladeth themselves with thick clay, it means that they've amassed a large amount of debt upon themselves. And that shouldn't come as a surprise, right? Let's go in here and type in United States, which is known as Babylon in the scriptures, or the daughter of Babylon. United States national debt. Look at this. The $34 trillion gross federal debt equals debt held by the public plus debt held by federal trust funds and other government accounts. And I don't really need to read any further. You can look it up yourself. But I was reading something earlier that says that, I believe they said every month or every 3 months or every 100 days, I think it said, that the U.S. debt goes up by one. There we go. This is it. The U.S. national debt is rising by $1 trillion. This was published in March 1st, 2024. About every 100 days. Okay. So like close to what? Like a little over 3 months or so. $1 trillion. That's a lot of money. Okay. That's a lot of, well, debt, I should call it. That's why it says that they've ladeth themselves with thick clay. That's a nation to be in this much debt. You can't survive that. And that's because they buy debt. When you borrow money, you're not really borrowing money. Okay, it's just amassing more and more debt. Anyway, verse 7, shall not they rise up suddenly that shall bite thee, and awake that shall vex thee, and thou shalt be for booties unto them. And when you look into the word bite, it actually goes into like in the context of the collector, the one that is owed, coming to collect or to oppress you with interest, right? So when we read it, says, shall they not rise up suddenly that shall bite? To go into the word bite, we have here in the shock, it says to bite, to pay, give interest, lend for interest or usury, right? To make, to give interest. And it says here to strike with a sting as a serpent, figuratively, to oppress with interest on a loan, which makes sense, right? Because they have amassed a lot of debt. When you owe debt, you owe it to somebody, and eventually that person, okay, is going to come to collect. So reading back, continuing here, it says in verse 7, it's saying, shall not they rise up suddenly that shall bite thee? Meaning those that you owe this debt to, right? With the interest, at some point they're gonna rise up, like it says, suddenly, and shall bite thee, which we went into that word nashak, meaning to ultimately to oppress with interest on a loan, right? And awake that shall vex thee, because you owe them. And the scriptures tell you that the borrower is subject to the lender. This is why you had the famous quote by Mayor Amschel Bauer, right? His original name was Bauer before it got changed to Rothschild. Give me control of a nation's money. And this is what he said. See if I can find it. Oh, nation's currency. Right? So it says here, give me control over a nation's currency, and I care not who makes its laws. This is by Mayor Amschel Rothschild, or Bauer. Okay, now you understand why he said this. Because guess what? The U.S. is in debt. You know who the U.S. is in debt to? Those that own the Federal Reserve, because the Federal Reserve is privately owned. And guess what? One of the families at the top of that are these guys. So at some point they're going to come to collect, but they don't really want that money back. They print that money out of thin air, or that currency, okay, which is a measurement of nothing. That's why they're able to do that. They literally print it out of thin air. So they don't want you to give them back dollars. They can print as many of that as they want. He doesn't care about you paying him back with money. He cares about the laws. He cares about the legislations. Because if he can get a nation under his control in his debt, and he can rise up suddenly to bite them or vex them, because now they are subject to him, well, I know you're not paying me all this $34 trillion in debt, but what you can do is pass these laws and legislations that'll help me in my ultimate agenda for world domination. So maybe I'll go with that instead. Just as an example, it says, and thou shalt be for booties unto them. Yeah, because a booty is a prey. And like I read earlier, the borrower is subject to the lender. And having amassed all this debt, yeah, you're going to be prey. Which is why very soon what they're going to do is they're going to collapse this economy. They have literally, overinflated this currency. They've done everything that they can do by the books to basically take down this economy, I should put it. Now it's just a matter of time. Verse 8, and this is causing the people, right, of the land to suffer, but majority of them don't understand why. They don't know why it is that they know they're suffering, but they don't understand why. Verse 8, because thou hast spoiled many nations, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee. Yeah, so because of, all the different, when you spoil these nations, you go in there, you take advantage of them, you exploit them via, backdoor deals or blackmailed force deals, or going in there and toppling their governments, all of these things. As it says, all the remnant of the people shall spoil thee. So those that remain and come back, they're gonna come back and get revenge because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land, of the city, and of all that dwell therein. And like I said, you can see it in their track record. For example, World War II, Pearl Harbor. If you really look into it, you'll find out that is something that they wanted to happen. They let that happen. They wanted that to do that because if you look at the size of their response versus how they were attacked, it's because they wanted to test out those bombs they dropped over there. Okay, that's something that they wanted to see. How can we best do this? Now, how would they look randomly just going and dropping these shits, on a certain country? Not too good. But now if they had a reason, we were attacked. Oh my gosh, it was so bad. Damn it. Let's drop bombs on them. Anyway, verse 9, woe to him that coveteth an evil covetousness to his house, that he may set his nest on high, that he may be delivered from the power of evil. Meaning that they covet with an evil covetousness that they may increase their house. right? Which is, their possessions, their well-being, right? As it says, that he may set his nest on high, so they can put themselves in the highest position, in a good place, in a place of control and power and safety, that he may be delivered from the power of evil, so that they wouldn't be subjected to any calamities, because they're at the top. Verse 10, thou hast consulted shame to thy house by cutting off many people, and has sinned against thy soul. For the stone shall cry out of the wall, and the beam out of the timber shall answer it. Now, when you read in which verse 10 is, pretty much self-explanatory, right? With all the wickedness that they've done, they've brought shame onto themselves, which is why now people don't look at Esau, Edom, or the heads of Esau as, a glorious people. The world hates them. Okay, and as it says, they've sinned against their own soul, because in doing these things to amass and raise their nest on high, they committed a lot of atrocities, a lot of heinous crimes, a lot of grievous sins, and it's going to come back to bite them. Now, verse 11, it says, for the stone shall cry out of the wall, and the beam out of the timber shall answer it. And similar to one of the verses above, it's always also good practice. It can help you when you read certain verses to look at how they're worded in other translations as well. Now, majority of these translations sort of put it as like, you're so bad, you're such a criminal, that even the stones of the wall, right, metaphorically speaking, and the beams of the tinder are gonna speak out against you. Okay, which is one way to look at it. But also in this verse, it's also another verse that describes or goes into the nuclear destruction, or the destruction that's going to come by the missiles. Okay, and this, a precept like this, lines up with, let me pull this up as well, the book of 2nd Ezra chapter 5. Okay, and particularly 2nd Ezra chapter 5 verse 5. So this is why I mentioned earlier, you have, when you read these scriptures, there are parts that are like dark sayings, meaning this will go over your head lest somebody teaches it to you. So when it says here, for the stone shall cry out of the wall, and the beam out of the timber shall answer it, doesn't mean that you're going to have, stones and brick buildings just start singing operas and stuff. But the crying of the stones and the beams out of the timber is referring on to the sounds and the destruction that's going to hit. Remember, when those nuclear missiles begin to hit this place, okay, and different parts of the world, you're going to have cities that are going to be destroyed. Of course, the missiles are going to come with fire, but you're also going to have earthquakes, and you're also going to have the shaking, as the scriptures tell you, of pretty much of the earth. So you're going to have the collapse of different buildings and so on and so forth. And we all know what it sounds like when a building starts to collapse, right? A lot of these buildings that are made of stone and brick and so on and so forth, the sounds that are going to be made when you hear them collapse and fall and all of that, that's what is meant by the stone crying out of the wall. Okay, not in the literal sense of, a stone growing a mouth and actually crying. Okay, but it's basically metaphorically representing the destruction. And when you go into 2nd Ezra, the 5th chapter and the 5th verse, it's pretty much, similar to what we read in Habakkuk 2. It says, and blood shall drop out of wood, and the stone shall give his voice, and the people shall be troubled. Now, when you read 2nd Ezra, the 5th chapter, it talks about, let me see. It starts off telling you, right? Nevertheless, as coming the tokens, because the angel Uriel was explaining to Ezra, or Esdras, some of the events, the tokens that were going to take place at the end. So he says here, as coming the tokens, meaning concerning the tokens to come, the signs to come, behold, the days shall come, meaning in the future, that they which dwell upon earth shall be taken in a great number. Taken meaning they're going to be destroyed. They're going to die, right? And the way and the way of truth shall be hidden, and the land shall be barren of faith. So what's going to cause them to be taken in a great number? That nuclear destruction at the end. Okay, the destruction. So when you come down to the 5th verse, and it talks about the blood dropping out of wood and the stone giving the voice. This is going to happen when those missiles hit, because when those missiles hit, like I mentioned, there are certain parts that are hit, and then immediately you have, if you look at what happens when a nuclear missile hits a certain place, or the warheads, you have the impact, the initial impact, you have the blast radius, and then you have like the heat wave that just like disperses right after. But there are other areas, buildings and places around that are also gonna feel that shaking, and gonna feel that destruction. And you're gonna have people that are gonna get hit, and their blood, as it says here, the blood shall drop out of the wood. This is really talking about people getting hit, their blood being mingled along with like trees and buildings and all of that going on, when those missiles hit or when that destruction comes. So it's not talking about actual bleeding trees, okay? But the destruction that's going to result from these missiles hitting. Okay, because remember, a part of the fuel for the fire is going to be people. As as these missiles are hitting and the fire is spreading, guess what? There are different parts of your body, different fats and liquids and so on and so forth that'll actually fuel that fire. Okay, and being that when you read in the book of, I believe, 2 Peter, it talks about how all the elements are going to be dissolved and so on and so forth. Well, that includes people, trees, buildings, and so all of that mixed together is what's given that scenery. Okay, and the people shall be troubled. Why are they going to be troubled? Because of the destruction that's going to be taking place. So going back to Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter and the 11th verse, that's really what it's going into. And it's kind of like a sudden switch, right, from verse 10 to 11. But that's not isolated to just the book of Habakkuk, right? You see that also in the book of Revelation, I believe the 20th chapter, as you read, and also even the 12th chapter, right? You're reading one verse and it jumps to it talks about another thing, then it comes back and talks about what it was talking about before. And you need to be able to discern, when that's happening. But once again, that comes by way of the Holy Spirit and ultimately by teachers. So verse 12, woe to him that buildeth a town with blood and establisheth a city by iniquity. And I'm sure I don't need to, go into detail about who this would fit, right? Because even looking at America today, how was America built? Do you think the so-called founding fathers got, they were sweating their ass off, lifting bricks and boulders, and why do you think they had slaves? And who were the slaves? When you have a slave, what do you think the job of the slave is? It's just to sit around and watch TV and shit and look pretty? No, they work. And as they're working, what is that doing? That's building up whatever it is that you're putting them to work for. Okay, so these devils, they build it, as it says, a town with blood, meaning on the blood of others. Whether it's by amassing, the wealth that they needed to do it via bloodshed, or by the actual blood and sweat and tears of, the slaves that they basically that actually did the work. Okay, it says, establisheth a city by iniquity. And you can take a look at America. Right now, a city is only as big as its citizens. So if you look at America, America is really one giant city. Now, how did they establish the modern day America that you know today? Did they come here and no, it's just nice, free, open, barren land, and we just want to start cultivating it and building upon it? No, there were already inhabitants here. So you can go and read the history about how the transition happened from who originally owned it to how it looks like today and who owns it now, or who's really running it now. And how did that happen? It was based on iniquity. Salaki, let me charge this computer so it doesn't die on me. Verse 13, behold, is it not of the Lord Yahweh of hosts that the people shall labor in the very fire, and the people shall weary themselves for very vanity? Now, once again, another example of when you pull up some of these other translations, the wording, helps it out a bit better, right? Laboring in the very fire, not necessarily meaning that here it is, they're in the midst of a hot furnace and they're working. But as it says here, Behold, this is the NKJV. Behold, is it not of the Lord of hosts that the peoples labor to feed the fire, and the nations weary themselves in vain? NLT. Has not the Lord of heaven's armies promised that the wealth of nations will turn to ashes, that they work so hard but all in vain? NIV. Has not the Lord Almighty determined that the people's labor is only fuel for the fire, and that the nations exhaust themselves for nothing? So now you start to get the gist of what it's saying, right? Meaning that all this work that they're doing is only, it's in vain, right? Like it says, it's only fuel for the fire, and all the the labors that they're going through is vanity. Because what's ultimately going to happen at the end of the day, the Lord is going to bring that fire to wipe it all away. And when you read the book of Wisdom of Solomon, for example, see if I can pull it up, of Solomon, the 5th chapter, it tells you that, right? That, let's see. There we go, right? Verse 9, all those things are passed away like a shadow, and as a post that hasted by. And when you go into it, it gives you more examples as to how all the things that they labored for and all of that, it's all vanity, because it's all going to be destroyed. And the Lord is doing that, right? He's the one who's orchestrating that. Verse 14, for the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the glory of Yahweh, as the waters cover the sea. And that's what you see happening now. And just going to continue on more and more. And a couple of precepts, right, which you can pull it up. I know there's one in 2nd Esdras. Also, when you read the book of Ezekiel, I believe it's the 47th chapter, that whole chapter, or at least the first 12 verses of that, go into this, right, about the waters, starting off, and it continues to rise and rise and rise, and then gives life to the fishes in the sea and all of that. Well, those waters represent the truth, right? And that the truth, as it says in 2nd Esdras, I believe 6 as well, that have been so long without fruit shall flourish, right? So let's go there real quick. I think that might be around 28. Let me see if I can find it here. And there's also one that talks about the book shall be opened. Let's look for books. Yeah, see if we can find this. Yep, 2nd Esdras chapter 2nd Esdras chapter 6 verse 20. And it reads, and when the world that shall begin to vanish away shall be finished, then will I shew these tokens. The books shall be opened before the firmament, and the books represent the Bible, being opened before the firmament. That's representing us, going into the scriptures and bringing the understanding of it, and it's opened before the firmament by way of the internet, which is carrying this, this information. It says, and they shall see all together, right? So now everybody everywhere is able to get the correct understanding of the scriptures. And that's why the Lord said that this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world, and then shall the end come. Now, there's also another verse that I'm looking for. There it is, verse 28. As for faith, it shall flourish, corruption shall be overcome, and the truth, which hath been so long without fruit, shall be declared. See, so going back to Habakkuk 2:14, the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. And that's going to come by way of the Lord, opening up our minds, right, starting with our elders and apostles to come and start teaching, to spread that word. Okay, and then it's going to go on from there. Ultimately, right, when you even go into certain precepts, it talks about how even in the kingdom, right, that we, for example, are not going to need to teach, each other, saying, know the Lord, for all shall know the Lord. And the heathens themselves are going to know the Lord, through us. Okay. Verse 15, woe unto him that giveth his neighbor drink. Now, like we read up above, the drink is not talking about actual literal drink or strong or wine or strong drink, but it's metaphorical for those philosophies, right? So woe to him that giveth his neighbor drink, that putteth the bottle to him, and makest him drunken also, that thou mayest look on their nakedness. And this is what Esau did and has done and continues to do. So when they put the bottle to him and make them drink, how do they do that? Well, if the drink represents their philosophies, their doctrines, those kinds of things, how do they make the inhabitants of the earth drunken? They go to them. They send these envoys and so on and so forth, and they go to these different countries and they sit down with them behind closed closed doors, and then they put contracts or deals before them, and they tell them, sign this, or be aligned with this, or accept this, which is the agenda that we're pushing. And if you do, we'll give you this amount of funding. If you don't, we'll stop funding you with this amount. Or they might even blackmail them. If you don't do this, we're going to say that you're doing this, or we're going to pull out this information on you. So that's likened onto them literally like sort of like bringing that bottle to their mouth and making them drink it. And because of that, they force some of these nations that may not be, and those are the neighbors here, right? And that's what Esau does. He forces these nations that may not be on the same level as him to succumb to him, to be drunken with the agenda and the manners that he promotes. Next thing you know, there's these nations that had their own ways of living and doing things are now practicing the same ways of Esau Edom, aka Americanization. Right? It says that thou mayest look on their nakedness, right? Which is to take advantage of them in that state, in that drunken state. And when you go to the book of Jeremiah 51:7, it reads, Babylon hath been a golden cup in the Lord Yahweh's hand. They made all the earth drunken. See, the nations have drunken of her wine, therefore the nations are mad. The word mad here meaning angry. Right? I believe Slakia, I misspoke there. Not angry, but more so mad as in, let me see, I think like crazy mad, like out of their right mind mad. Let's see if it's in here. Yeah, to act madly, act like a madman. Yep, so I misspoke there. Not like today you use the term like I'm mad, he made me mad, like as in I'm angry, but mad as in a mad person. So going back to Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 16. Thou art filled with shame for glory. Drink thou also, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. The cup of the Lord Yahweh's right hand shall be turned unto thee, and shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. See, so as it says, thou art filled with shame for glory. So rather than being glorified, they're filled with shame because of all these things that they have done and that they continue to do. And so now the Lord is saying here, drink thou also, just like you made them drink it, you also go and drink, and let thy foreskin be uncovered. When your foreskin is uncovered, it means you're exposed. And that's what's happening today. Now the whole world is like America's on the front stage, and the whole world is seeing, them being uncovered and seeing all the things that are really going on. What does this nation actually look like? Right? It says the cup of the Lord's right hand shall be turned onto thee. And so ultimately, who is the Lord's right hand? Yahushua, right? And the cup, when you read about like the cup or drinking of the cup, it really represents like punishment, right? Or having to suffer consequences for your actions. So when you have to drink of the cup, right, it means you have to, basically it's payback. So the cup of the Lord's right hand shall be turned on to thee. So the Lord he's gonna bring that, that cup and make them drink of it. And shameful spewing shall be on thy glory. And that's what you see going on today, right? So at one point they were known as like one of the top countries. Everybody looked at this place as like almost like the kingdom of heaven, like the streets were paved with gold and everybody wanted to come here. But now, as it says, shameful spewing. When you think of this place and you look at it, now it's next to no different than some other country that you would look at and be like, damn, I can't believe this is actually going on in there. Like one example is, look up what's happening over there in is it San Francisco? San Francisco. Or matter of fact, let me do United States drug problem. See what comes up. Okay, this was in 2023. What's that? Fentanyl and U.S. Opioid epidemic. Let me see. Maybe there's more. So there's something more. But I know I think it might be San Francisco or some there's some locations around certain areas that now, like, I mean, it's just known for how bad, like, it has become. It's not safe. People are afraid to take public transportation. Like, it's terrible. There are just certain places that you go to and you see, and you're just like, what the hell? Like, is this even America? Right? Well, that's a part of the shameful spewing, along with many other things that is now starting to become the image of this place. Verse 17, for the violence of Lebanon shall cover thee, and the spoil of beasts which made them afraid, because of men's blood, and for the violence of the land, of the city, and of all that dwell therein. Now it says Lebanon here, but it's not really, necessarily like literally referring to that place. Okay, but in this verse, it's more so just highlighting the point that payback, right? Like all the violence that they have committed, both to man and beast, and like it says, for man's blood and the violence in the land and of the city and those that dwell therein, they're gonna have to pay for that. Their glory is gonna be turned to shame, and they're gonna have to drink of that cup of payback. Verse 18, what profiteth the graven image, that the maker thereof hath graven it? The molten image, and a teacher of lies, that the maker of his work trusteth therein to make dumb idols. So, and here now it's going into like the worthlessness of these idols, right? Because when it says what profiteth the graven image, a graven image is an idol, right? When you cut wood and then you cut into it and then form this image, this statue of wood or whatever the case is, that's a graven image, an idol. So here is being asked, what profit do you get from a graven image, right? That the maker thereof hath graven it. So they make these idols for what, right? And the molten image, which is another idol, and a teacher of lies, meaning that you believe that it can do this, that, and the third, but that's not. It's literally just, if it's from wood, it's just wood. If it's from clay or gold, it's just that the maker of his work trusteth therein to make dumb idols. Verse 19, woe unto him that saith to the wood, awake, to the dumb stone. When it says dumb, it means it can't talk. Arise, it shall teach. So it says, woe unto you, right? Because in other words, woe unto you, idol worshippers. Behold, it is laid over with gold and silver, and there is no breath at all in the midst of it. So it's just, it's just an idol. It's not alive. It's not living. It's just an idol. And if you believe in that, if you are an idol worshiper, woe unto you. Because they hold no power. And if they don't have any breath, how are they going to save you? Verse 20, but the Lord Yahweh is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him. And this is to emphasize that the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, right, Bahasham Yahweh, Yahweh is the only one true living power. And he's actually living, right? Like today, if you go into the temple of an idol, there's nobody actually in there because that idol is not alive, it's not living. But if you went into the temple of the Lord, he is there because he is the one true living God. Hence, let the earth keep silence before him, meaning to show that fear and reverence. And that's pretty much the end of the book of Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter. And like I said, it mainly goes into Esau, Edom, and ultimately the judgment that's going to come upon him as well. All right. So anyway, with that, I'm going to end it here. Lord willing, that was edifying to the elect. In closing, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Barakah, Kodash. And until next time, Shalom.